Everybody, welcome back to Spiritual Devil, where today is Tuesday, September the 20th, and I've currently got my 20 days of the vegan challenge marked as successful. For 20 days, I haven't had anything in terms of foods or nutrients that were derived from animal products. And so what that means is I haven't had any eggs or dairy or meat. Things that are really unnecessary, actually, in our diet. Many of us don't give attention to the fact that we are literally eating it up. The lies that have been told to us, I mean. You see, in many cases here itself, I've asked over and over for my direct family to help me to communicate with my direct family. Whether those family members were by blood or by marriage or what, it didn't matter. I've simply asked for assistance communicating with other people in my family. Only if they cared to hear me, that is. If they don't, that's fine. I don't want to be wasting anyone's time. And for the same reason, I don't want anyone to be wasting my time. So here I am concurrently telling you a story about last month on this video channel. The subjects of each of these videos, the headings, the descriptions of each of these videos will tell you the date that it was recorded on, if it's one of these type of talks. I don't always include a date on the videos, but for the purpose of timelining, storylining, what has happened, especially when it comes to the personal details that are captured here, about, let's say for an example, when the place went up in flames. For those purposes, I've just shared the information here within the content of these documentaries. And I've been sharing them because I wanted to reiterate that my health is directly being impacted by those who would just continue to consume any kind of insight that I'm giving them without returning the simple favor of at least considering helping my circumstances to improve the same way that I would help your circumstances to improve. Many of us only consider improvements in circumstances by measures of what they might consider to be financial stability. Financial stability, deep thinkers, really just means being happy. Happy with the energy we have. Health is wealth, time is money, etc. and so forth. So, if we don't value our time, we're not going to value someone else's time. In many cases, I've had these same roundabout conversations. You guys know what I'm talking about, you deep thinkers. The roundabout conversations that basically go over the same things over and over and over. And by same things, what I mean is they basically fail to accomplish anything other than to waste our time being caught up in the addiction of entertaining ourselves out of a conversation. There's a plastic bag flying overhead to the left. Maybe it'll show up. I don't know if it flew high enough. I can't tell. I'm about to enter a freeway interchange where people have, again, misunderstood the signs around them, advising them of the construction that was ongoing. And because people have misunderstood the signs, oftentimes people are veering back and forth, trying to merge. So, speaking of our conversations, trying to merge our conversations, you guys know what I'm talking about. There are those people who will invite you to anything and then never show up or forget about the invitation. Maybe they'll invite you to watch a movie with them. Maybe they'll invite you to have a meal with them. It's at that point when people fail to invite you to anything that you start to recognize people really don't like idle gossip, idle conversation. Or do they? You see, what we're all caught up in is a construct where it is idle gossip that continues to tie up our tongues to where we cannot have a full conversation with the people who we need to have a conversation with, because we're being prevented from having this conversation, sometimes by our very elders, with whom these responsibilities truly lie. And by lie, I absolutely mean that. Our elders who swore to protect us. Our elders who say that we're fighting for freedom and justice fail to recognize the injustices that are being levied against their own children. Not only do they fail to recognize them, and by recognize I mean let's get past the basic acknowledgement. Let's start doing something about it. To recognize something means we have to change our mannerisms. If we don't change our mannerisms because we don't recognize something, it's because nothing was different, or we were indifferent to everything that was happening around us anyway. Aren't you concerned about the indifference among our fathers, the way that we were taught? Are you not concerned about the way the world has devolved? For all who are watching this right now, the only reason you're watching this is because I'm frankly not talking with you in person. We're not talking in person right now because we're spinning our wheels, or we were. For me, it's Tuesday. I have lost about just over 2 kilos since the 1st of this month. I ran for the first time probably since I was a child. I ran for about a half mile. When I say about, I ran over a half mile. It took me 5 minutes and 55 seconds. That's the first time I've run probably more than a quarter mile in quite a long time. And I hadn't done it before at all in quite a long time. What reason do we have to run in this great nation where we're able to sit down and just listen to a conversation, whether we're doing other things at the same time or not? Some of you might be cooking or cleaning. I anticipate it's many of are mothers who are watching this video. Some of us might be watching for other relevant news, highlights, sporting events, gaming systems. Some of us might be looking for entertainment that's just based on taking ourselves out of our own personal experience. Some of us might be looking for movies and to consume out of fiction-based material all day and all night. So we've got a stonewall between any conversation that could ever occur. Because what good does it do for me to talk with you in person or in this medium if I can't even accomplish one simple thing talking to my own direct relative? What good does it do my health if I have everything in the world but nothing in terms of family? So in a time like that, it can seem kind of challenging, daunting in a way to feel any kind of joy. The things I haven't told to you as I'm driving right now are about the butterfly. There are a few butterflies passing through. About the things that were all over the road that I usually talk about the traffic that's having difficulties merging because ownership of spaces is treated with irreverence. How can we even own a space we're not in? Think about it. So anyway, the only thing I can additionally hesitate to question is, how can we have a space always given to us if we burn down the space that was given to us? How is it in those fancy constructs? How is it that we've come to this point where in our conversation we can see suffering, such suffering, and not be moved to do a single thing? For the whole day, we prioritize what's for our best interest, for our comfort, never once thinking about the discomfort of others. And so I ask on this channel, even in the songs that I've written, how was your day? And when I ask how your day was, I ask so that I can listen, not just to vilify whoever the villain is in your story, but to hear if there's an actual solution that can be accomplished. That's how I find my work. When there's something that can be done, that can be accomplished, I'm more than willing to do it. Now, my last level of professional employment, and it wasn't that professional if you ask me, was for a department that was hard at work, where we had true deep thinkers. Within that construct, however, were a level of management and approval and regulation and documentation and on such that If there were an error in the system, it would take quite a while to correct it, depending on the level of severity. In this system today, I was recently camping at a national park where the level of severity of the response that was occurring among the wildlife was not met with the actual leadership capabilities that I know we have in these areas. The campground not only didn't get closed, it continued to book reservations. While these bears were congregating in an unnatural manner. Our leaders, our fathers, the people who, if they heard the things that I had gone through with other people, mind you, to accomplish certain things, only to be met with having our credentials covered up from the equation, might remind you a lot of even the very opening pages of a book by, let's just call the book by its title, A People's History of the United States. In that book are many accounts of events in history that went a certain way, but were recorded slightly differently by the victors. We won't get too much into that abstract theory of this singular thought, but many people who deserve credit at this point aren't the ones who are resting on their laurels. These people who are resting on their laurels, collecting all the benefits of that which they did in the past, none of us has worked as hard as the lower class. None of us can have the perspective that it takes to recognize why we need to acknowledge even our very children differently. Because the way that they treat others is a direct reflection of how our elders treat others. So if we don't recognize ourself in our selfishness and in our selfless acts, then we may not recognize if a group of 17 hungry bears are gathered around a national park campground in an unnatural way. We may not ever give credit to the fact that drought and climate challenges are causing this situation to begin with. We may not acknowledge that families who are reserving these sites may not know that there are bears hiding in the bushes. We may not know to pay extra attention to our children who are in our campgrounds. We may not know. But for some reason, me, and I'm not a father, I have no children. For some reason, me, the guy without children, is considerate of these circumstances on behalf of the parents who are not involved, not responsible, not even aware. And that's not even their fault. For any of you who feel like as if I'm talking at you, it's not your fault. Remember Good Will Hunting, the movie? It's not your fault. It really isn't. Hey, that same book I was talking about was mentioned in that movie. A People's History of the United States. There are a lot of people who can discredit a lot of things, but have they read the book? I'll read any text of peace with anybody. I'll spend any amount of time with anybody who wants to talk about these circumstances. And because I am averse to conflict, and I am averse to pain, and I am averse to heartache, I will do everything I can to mitigate all of those things, which means I'll do things in a non-destructive manner. From my perspective, all you have to do is look around me and know I've got resources that not everyone has. And I recognize that. This is, however, what I've got. And so I'm working with what I've got, asking along the way for things that I can talk with you about. But for some reason, the conversation among our fathers, the part that I'm asking for over and over, it's not being allowed through. Stonewall. Stonewall was the name of the street that I drove on when I said that word initially in this talk. I was driving in traffic just a while ago. I know that I suggested you might be cleaning or cooking or watching a sports event, or more commonly, watching the basic news, the Noose, the thing that ties us together and also can hang us together, the Noose. Many of us are enjoying the news, more worked up about something in a remote location than the fact that their own children are being robbed outright of generational wealth and otherwise benefits that are being pillaged, oftentimes by our elders. The generational conversations that we're not having have to do with a level of compassion that we either have or no longer have for and with one another. The very words that I'm speaking are words of truth, and they make some of you angry. I know, because something like this might have made me feel uncomfortable in the past as well. I'm not saying anything to make anyone insecure. I'm not saying anything that's not personal. This is all personal. It's called YouTube. If I'm talking about you or myself, it's very personal. This channel exists, I thank the creator of this channel. It exists so that we can have these conversations in ways that allow participation or a lack thereof. Remember about the lukewarm subjects. Remember that we are not the judge. Remember that we are mostly comprised of water. And so when we refuse the water that's being given to nourish us, for any reason, it might be detrimental. Even if I myself refuse the plastic bottle of water. The difference is, if I'm foregoing it because I know I can drink water at my leisure whenever I feel like it, and that I also will never want for it, then either I'm very entitled or I've actually gone on the trails hiking days, miles, etc. And some of these things I describe have been just as true as if they were written in a book of peace. For any of you who are watching this alone, who have watched it this far, you're hearing the words, you finally stopped whatever you're doing because you calmed down in your understanding, plus the scenery is beautiful, the clouds, plus you understand maybe you have a role in this. If you're watching this far, then all you have to do is think, why for almost 30 minutes have I not had so-and-so watching this as well? They know something about this subject. They can help him with that. Why have I not talked with so-and-so about such and such thing? They could have helped with that. And the reason that I come to over and over is because we've got a lot of entertainment. We've got a lot of entertaining that we want to have occur in our lives. A lot of entertaining. We want to have all of this freedom to do what we've plundered the place to do without recognizing the death, the ongoing death of the things that the Creator has given to us. And I can mean that on every level. Every level you can think of. How you take it is up to how you discipline your thoughts to take those insights. So, 20 days into a vegan challenge, I know that my mind is super sharp. I'm not unhappy so much as I am discouraged from having outright conversations with just about anybody. Because the conversations continue to run into these circumstances where it just becomes a nonstop conversation. Even about things like what are happening. There's a car running. This vehicle next to me has been beeping over and over. There was no need to continue to do that over and over, except for validation of some sort. You want to hear yourself beep? Go ahead and keep talking the same gossip that you've been talking for the whole time. Go ahead and keep beep, beep, beeping all the way into the point where you air horn the bears out of the campgrounds without recognizing their thirstiness, without recognizing how hungry they are. Go ahead and click on the thumbs down. But don't forget that for almost 30 minutes this time, you almost participated just the same way that I'm participating. For almost a month, for 20 days, I have only lost 2.3 kilos, which is just at 5 pounds. I'm able to run a half mile. Yesterday I did 100 push-ups, not in a row. I broke them up into 10 push-up increments. I don't feel sore from that. My core feels solid. I'm about to walk this trail. I know I'm going to feel great doing it. I'm going to hear the silence that I've shown in the previous videos for our fathers to start to finally pay attention to. I've shown the challenges as far as picking up the trash, how hard it is to tend to all of that without a little bit more than someone suggesting that I cut plastic cups in half, stuff plastic bags in there, and then tie those to trees every so often so that people can have a plastic bag to grab to throw their trash in. I've heard all of the suggestions that are both well-intentioned and also almost laughable. I don't mean to shame anyone specifically. What I'm saying is, some of these ideas, without thinking with your own mind, not with the ideas that you've heard or read somewhere else, If you can't think with your own mind, you might just sit in a car with it idling for like 30 minutes before you leave that parking spot. Why? And should I even care? So this car finally got it in gear. They're starting to move slowly out of the way. And now they're taking off. If you can understand the things that I know that I'm faced with, and if you can understand me telling you, I know things that are going to happen in my favor, I'm always going to get the front area parking spot wherever I go. But there's always going to be an energy that shows almost as if I'm agitated. But it's going to be manifested in the weirdest ways where other people show agitating quirks. Because we're mirrors. We're all mirrors of whatever it is that we are. If we can only accept a conversation with one person in private, but not have that same full conversation with another person in public, it's possible that the mirror has trick lighting or unusual camera angles that are masking what's truthfully there. It's possible. It's possible that we have not been paying attention with one another for enough time that we forget the initial part of the conversation that was saying, hey, I'm just telling you, if you're seeing this, it's because we're not seeing each other. And if you're hearing these words, it's because you're finally listening to the same thing that we would be saying in person. And if you're listening to those things that I'm saying here, why can't you listen to those things with someone else who you typically have had difficulties having a conversation with in the past? Or are you just an in-between? Do you help to keep conversations apart? The roles are very similar. You really have to only look into yourself to see what you can self-control. If you can self-control not eating meat for a certain amount of time, for not eating animal products of any sort for a certain period of time, then that means you also understand how grateful you can be for those things. Take this and eat from this. This is my body, was how it was put in one set of text of peace. If you can't give gratitude for that which you are receiving, you might set it on fire. You might steal what someone else would have given to you. Also in the first few pages of that book that was referenced. Book of peace, book of knowledge, book of truth. We can only hear what we allow our hearts to hear. If we don't value it, we're not going to hear it. We're not going to nurture it. We're going to hear that this struggle has been ongoing for almost 20 days, for a whole month almost. Where 2 kilos, no matter how much effort I put in, there seems to be an anchor that I'm about to let go of. And you're going to see it on this channel. The question is, are you going to see it in person? In your own self? It's really all there is to it. On this channel, again, no matter how you take it, whether you think that I'm talking just wildlife and nature, or whether wildlife and nature are a great barometer to the ecosystems that we have, whether you can visualize how unpleasant it must be to continuously have this same conversation without ever having it with our fathers. If you can understand that, then you can understand how important it is to share this type of message. Either by sharing it with that person that you could have been watching this with, or the person for whom this was intended. Self-control is a matter of self-control. We either practice it or we don't. While many of us can preach it because we can sit in the chair comfortably numb, we can sit in the chair even with something in the way, like commercials and paid advertisement among a marketing scheme designed to keep us captive and entertained. Whether we can discuss any of these things with our fathers starts with whether we can have that conversation with ourselves. Forgiveness of self is the most important. I've said my peace, love, and all that old school stuff. The only thing that I'm expecting in return is for the same kindness. You hear the hawk? I'm just asking for the same kindness that anybody who was about to get trampled over should have the right to express. Anybody who's being trampled upon should have a voice and should easily know how to use it. This is just one way. Music is another way. Silence is another way. Manifesting yourself into that which you see, feel, and believe. That's another way. I feel alive. I've never felt more alive. In a way, it's a disgrace that I have not been able to take my elders through this nation, showing them the same things that I'm seeing. But on the flip side to that disgrace, even Death Valley flooded again for the second time this year in ways, and I say the second time just to punctuate, even Death Valley, the place who normally doesn't receive the type of rainfall that they received, had two devastating situations occur. Big Bend, the bears were circling the campgrounds in an unusual way. If I were showing my elders this right now and showing them in a way where they could actually hear with their heart, we might have conversations that would allow me to give the gravity of the message in just a way where, whether we wept or not, we could at least know that there was an issue. Because the first and only paramount reason that we would ever address something is if we first acknowledged that there was a problem. So the more that we overlook it, the more that we let it go, the more we let something that's doomed for failure to continue in that direction, they might just light the house on fire. Who knows what they're capable of doing next? But in this world, I'm giving you a video account because, frankly, I feel that I've been endangered by my direct relatives in ways that just don't make sense. So if I turn up not on this plane anymore, well, at least there's a video account for the things that have happened, and also perhaps the things that haven't happened. Till next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.